did not provide a plan or assessment detailing efforts to return Crane Bank into compliance with prudential standards, despite funding of up to 478 billion being injected into Crane Bank. In the absence of the plan or assessment to revive Crane Bank Limited, the Auditor General was unable to provide assurance as to whether sections 895 and 94C of the FIA 2004 were complied with. Mr. Chairman, the Bank of Uganda response is that the intervention and subsequent resolution of Crane Bank was done under Section 8.
Chair, some procedure. I would imagine that the EDS would start reading from on 10th February 2018 from the 3rd paragraph. That is what would help us most.
Just go to 2.9.4.3 and start on the 3rd paragraph.
Thank you, Chair. On 10th April 2018, the Auditor General requested for the reports of the Statutory Manager and details of the funds injected into Crane Bank prior to takeover. In parentheses, the purpose of the injection, amount to be injected, procedures and approval of the intended reinjection, recovery plan, and how the injected funds were to be managed to establish the efforts taken by the Statutory Manager to revive Crane Bank Limited. The query then is, Bank of Uganda did not provide a plan or assessment detailing the efforts to return the bank into compliance, despite funding of up to 478 billion. So in the absence of the plan or an assessment to revive Crane Bank Limited, the Auditor General was unable to provide assurance as to whether sections 895 and 94 of the FIA were complied with. Mr. Chairman, the Bank of Uganda response is that the intervention and subsequent resolution of Crane Bank was done under Section 87.3 and 89. So 89.5 did not come into play as indicated by the Auditor General. 1. 2. Following an on-site examination, as at 31st March 2016, the shareholders of Crane Bank Limited were given an opportunity to revive the bank through a capital call on July 1st, 2016, and details of some of the meetings with the majority shareholder had been initially submitted to you under Annex H8, H9, and H10. On the failure by Crane Bank shareholders to comply with the capital call, Bank of Uganda exercised its powers under Sections 87.3, 88.1 A and B, and took over the management of Crane Bank. The takeover under Section 87.3 was guided by the systemic nature of the undercapitalized institution to avoid financial sector instability. The results of the subsequent inventory and forensic investigation by PwC guided the resolution plan that resulted in the P&A. The argument, Mr. Chairman, was that as a result of the findings of the forensic plan, the forensic report that was conducted by PwC, Bank of Uganda did not think it necessary to even consider reviving the institution, considering the kind of problems it had. I submit, Mr. Chairman.
Is it your evidence, therefore, that Bank of Uganda, and I want this clearly, did not have any plan at all to revive Crane Bank on its assumption? Because if that is the case, then we sustain the query that actually you didn't have any plan. What will come into play, though, is whether 87.3 and 89.5 are conflicting and which one prevails. Then we will determine.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, based on the evidence that has been available to me, is that
it is not based on the evidence available to you. This is not personal. Just tell us, did the Bank of Uganda
Yes.
have plans to revive Crane Bank or not?
The plans were never there, Mr. Chairman.
Colleagues, you see, the law is very clear. First of all, it allows you to take over statutorily and appoint a statutory manager. If you have no plan of revival, you actually take on and liquidate.
Mr. Chairman, clearly, as we set out to resolve Crane Bank, we did not have, we didn't want to dissolve it. We wanted to revive the bank, to help the bank revive, obviously. But going through this process and the reaction of the bank, it became impossible. So we moved on. It was a process, not a decision of taking as a go. But I hope Mrs. White confirm this.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Governor, I confirm what Governor has said. It was a process, and no information came available to us. Chair, if you look at the forensic audit, which revealed the whole, how money was being siphoned from that bank, the Bank of Uganda made a determination to resolve Crane Bank once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. On the 28th of November 2016, 5 weeks into the statutory management, Bank of Uganda did engage Max to provide transactional advice to take over CBL. Could Bank of Uganda explain the intention of the statutory management? Was it to revive the bank or to prepare a takeover by another bank? If I could get the response to that before I go to the second question, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps Mrs. Bajenda will help us on the response to this question.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Governor, may I request Legal Counsel to take us through the statutory management and the attendant duties after takeover. Thank you.
Yeah. My question is, on the 20th November 2016, 5 weeks into the statutory management, Bank of Uganda engaged Max to provide transactional advice to take over of CBL. Could the bank explain the intention of the statutory management, i.e., was it to revive the bank or to prepare for the takeover by another bank? What were the terms of engagement? Maybe if I have to put it that way, when you engage Max.
Legal Counsel.
Thank you, Chair, and through the Governor. As pointed out earlier, Crane Bank was taken over under Section 87, but also under Section 88. If you can look at the notice, It was also taken over under Section 88, both 88(1)(a) and B.
Let's look at, we don't want to run away from the issue. The issue is, was there a plan when you took over to revive this bank? And if so, what was this plan? Because say, this is the plan we had to revive the bank. Somehow, whether after audit and so on, it didn't work out. We therefore decided to resolve it the way we did. So, the process you are talking about, yes, of course it was a process, there's no doubt about that. But the only reason why the law gives you powers to manage an institution before you liquidate it is to see if there is any chance of revival. That's the only reason why a statutory manager comes in. If it isn't that, you close and liquidate. So the issue is, did you have any plans to revive Crane Bank at takeoff? And if so, where is that plan you had? Can you give us the plan you had?
Thank you, Chair, and through the Governor. At the time of taking over statutory...
Can I stop you there because your boss wants to say something?
Thank you, Chairman. There's an echo. Thank you, Chairman. I just want to go back to where the Governor stopped in terms of the evolution and the decision making. That there was a capital call. When we use the word revive the bank, it means that the bank can play its role of intermediation, taking deposits and lending. And it must have a risk carrying capacity, means that it must have capital. So that is the revival of a bank. So the Bank of Uganda made a call for capital. It took the decision to intervene when the shareholders failed to meet the capital call. At that point, the decision was, should we go ahead and close? The reason we did not close is because Crane Bank was a domestic, systemically important bank. It was a BSIP. The reason we did not close is related to financial stability. That's the reason why we did not close. The moment you take the decision not to close, then you have to make the other decision that you must support the participation of that bank in the clearing house. If you leave it open but don't support it, then it will be kicked out of the clearing house and it would be closed. So Bank of Uganda then went ahead to provide liquidity. And as we clarified last week, liquidity support does not tantamount to capital. Liquidity support increases both the assets and liabilities and does not increase the net worth. The only way you could revive this institution, was under a resolution where somebody else now brings in the capital. The question was asked last week, could we have used a Bank of Uganda loan, subordinate it, and use it to recapitalize? And I did quote the law. The amount that you can use of a subordinated loan for secondary capital is determined by the core capital of that institution. Since the institution was insolvent, the amount you could get from a subordinated loan that could go to capital was zero. So you couldn't use a subordinated loan to inject capital. You needed to resolve the bank to get somebody else pumping in capital. So the plan, specifically to your question, the plan was to sustain Crane Bank open. We wanted to keep it open so that the depositors can get access and conduct banking business.
Resolving it. Because if you have to sustain it, Dr. Kaseke, then we go to what you've just said. If the core capital of this institution has been literally wiped out, you can go ahead and get some other person to put in capital. And what I expected is, we had this problem, systematic, as you call it, endemic. So we tried to get X, Y, and Z to come and put in capital, yet we couldn't. Because let me tell you why. If you put in liquidity support, which is not capital, you are just throwing in a bottomless pit, knowing this money may actually not be gotten back. That's the problem. However, if you could get some other investor who can be able to put in capital, even the liquidity support you have put in, it could end up being a loan. Not so. That's correct. So what I expected Bank of Uganda, I've been trying to read a little bit of these things, was like, okay, we tried to bring in some investors, X, Y, Z, but we failed, and the only way to do it was to close it and liquidate it, because that would have been trying to revive the bank.
Chair.
I don't know whether you get my... Yes.
I get you, Chair. And that is from the time we entered. That is the process, as you've just described it. That's what we ended up doing, trying to look around for potential investors to come in, look at the bank.
That is the evidence now we need.
Oh, yes, I think...
That's the evidence we need. Who are these potential investors whom you called to invest? That's the evidence we need.
Mr. Chairman.
Because that can prove that there was some attempt at reviving the what? The bank.
But Chair,
which I don't see.
Chair, I don't want to sustain the argument that the bank was insolvent, because we have some unanswered queries on bad book, which has not been resolved to date. If we could resolve that aspect of the bad book, how it was provided for, how the core capital was eroded in the provisions, then we would now say there was insufficiency of what? Of the capital. For now, we can still have it as undercapitalized.
Mr.
And maybe
Chairman.
we could also understand when was this
We
decision
need to
taken.
go one by one. Let's Honorable finish.
When was
we
this
have the
decision
responses, then we go to some other person.
I could find I could find out from Mrs. Vagenda, when did you make a decision that this bank could finally be sold out?
Thank you, Chair, through the Governor. My two bosses have already talked about the process. Before we intervened, the shareholders of Crane Bank had started talking to investors, but they could not conclude the discussions. And again, as my bosses have said, the capital continued to be deficient.
Can we,
when we intervened,
before you go to that one, you said the holders had started talking to the what?
The shareholders.
The shareholders
had started talking to the investors.
Yes.
Some investors looking for recapitalization of the bank. They had
with your knowledge?
Sorry?
With your knowledge?
Yes.
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 And how far did they go?
When they looked at the financial position of the bank, they did not commit. They did not commit themselves. Even Bank of Uganda met the shareholders. You want me to mention them? One of them was Atlas Mala, who came and even met the governor, met the supervision team, talking about their plan. And
do you have minutes of that meeting?
Mr. Chairman, through the governor, you recall I asked for my emails. I am yet to ask for the minutes. Those requests are still outstanding.
The issue about, by the way, now that you say it, there is a letter which Mrs. Bagenda wrote to the governor. I think I saw it yesterday in the afternoon, also a copy. Yesterday afternoon. And she was requesting to get access to the emails, and I think also have a backup. That has nothing to do with us. That's between you and the bank. If you want to comment, though, is, you see, official communication is official document. If you are going to have them as a backup in your house, maybe it would be a problem, but that is between you as an institution. If it is an official email, it is an official email. It should be on your record, on the bank's record. But we are not going to get involved in that. Please. Can you, Honorable Monk, may proceed?
I was still asking for the date when you made that decision as to whether to sell the bank or not.
Thank you, Chair, through the governor. I don't recall. I would wish to have the minutes and all the documents related to Crane Bank. Thank you.
Chair, why I'm asking that, when you look at the letter dated 21st October 2016, in this letter, Madam Bagenda says post-takeover management of Crane Bank Limited assignments. When you look at number 3, the request she made to the governor was to invite potential acquirers of Crane Bank Limited, where she said we propose to work with the BOE external lawyers, MS Max Advocates, in the sale of as transactional advisors. This is October. The P&A was in January, 25th January. So I am imagining that this process started long before, even when there was statutory management. And that now puts a question mark in my mind that, did you have any idea of reviving this bank if you could involve transactional advisors on the sale in October? That means you did not try to help this institution.
Mr. Chairman, sometimes back we asked the question here, and you put it in the best way. How undercapitalized was Crane Bank? The answer has since then disappeared. The Auditor General's query here says Bank of Uganda management did not provide a plan or assessment detailing efforts to return the bank in compliance. And it continues. Initially, Mr. Manzi said there was no plan. The governor confirmed there was a plan. The query complains of not availing this plan and assessment. I think the simple question would be, where is the plan that was there, as has been confirmed by the governor? Or where is the assessment detailing the efforts to return this back to compliance? Not literature, not grammar, but this time document. Where is this plan? It must not be words of people like you want to put across.
Actually, literature is also documents.
Chair. Chair.
Anyway, Bank of Uganda, because we want to see where is that plan. Is it documented?
Chair.
Mr. Chairman, that assessment, as correctly noted by the Auditor General, is not documented. What we based on, and I repeat, was a review of the forensic report.
How do you review it? Is there a document reviewing that? Reviewing is looking at the audits, and then you review and you take a conclusion.
Yes.
No, but
you see, Bank of Uganda team, Governor, decisions of institutions are made and put on record. If there is a plan, it should be documented. So this is the plan. We invited 4 investors to help raise capital. Because at the same time, we were injecting in liquidity. We are injecting in public money. But you need this institution to stay afloat. Therefore, you need a core investor to come in. And what we needed is documentation about this core investor. Say, this is what we did. Then we would agree to what you are saying, that there was this plan.
And Chair, the forensic audit they are talking about is for January 2017. So I really wonder how one would make a decision in October and then the forensic audit 2016, and yet the forensic audit is for January 2017. You can have the document here.
And Mr. Chairman, reviewing a forensic report, you are just going through to see whether you agree with what your consultant has said. It doesn't mean that you are reviewing, therefore you are putting a plan.
Chair, my issue is about the inventory that was carried out to determine how undercapitalized Crane Bank was. And the chronology of events indicate that actually BOU did not rely on the inventory that was presented by PwC. Because when you read through, BOU hired PwC to carry out that inventory on the 20th of October 2016. And this report was presented, the inventory was presented to the statutory manager. The statutory manager took over Crane Bank on 20th October 2016, and yet the inventory report was presented on 21st December 2016. So how then could they have relied on this report to take a decision whether Crane Bank was undercapitalized or not? Because by January 25th, they were already taking over the bank. So you can see clearly that they did not actually rely on this presentation.
You said January when?
January 25th, 2017. But the statutory manager took over on 20th October 2016.
Mike, thank you, Chair. Mrs. Bajenda, probably you. This is to you. Did the Bank of Uganda enter into an MOU with the Crane Bank in regard to recapitalization?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Governor, yes.
Now, in that MOU, you set conditions and terms for the bank to recapitalize. And I'm sure that's one of the things that members have been asking for. That made part of the plan for reviving the bank. And after that MOU, I have a letter with me here, which I will share with you to refresh your memory. Crane Bank held a directors meeting. And they wrote to you on the 28th of September, informing you, the executive director of supervision this time, informing you that in line with the compliance of the MOU you had entered with them, they set parameters for providing capitalization. The first being $1 million for 30th September 2016, then $4 million to be provided by the 20th of October 2016. And they also set other dates, and they were in promise that by 31st December 2016, they would have identified an investor and fully recapitalized the bank. Now, what is interesting is that even before the expiry of the date they had set, which was 20th October, on the same day is when the bank underwent statutory management. So I need to know how you can set a plan for revival, and you yourself as a regulator, you do not wait for your MOU to stand. Could it have been based on an assumption, therefore, that the first installment did not come in? Or could you have suspected that they would not comply with the dates they had set? Chair, through you, I would wish to submit this letter and maybe share it with Mrs. Rajenda for fairness to refresh her memory.
You know, I want to cross-check if I share any document with anybody. Can we have this to Mrs. Vajenda, please? Mrs. Vajenda. It is addressed to the Executive Director of Supervision.
Thank you, Chair, through the Governor. As I refresh my mind through reading this, I request the Line Director, Mr. Sekabira, to speak to the MOU and to speak to our meetings. Thank you.
Sorry?
As I refresh my mind, Mr. Chairman, through the Governor, I would like to request Mr. Ben Sekabira, the Line Director, who was the Director of Commercial Banking, to speak to the MOU and our meetings as I read through these documents. As I said, Mr. Chairman, we work as a team. Thank you.
Yeah, we do appreciate that, but let's move systematically. Let's finish that one, and then Mr. Sekabira will come in.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Sekabira has an answer. Thank you. Through the Governor.
Sorry?
Mr. Sekabira has an answer. Thank you, Chair. Through the Governor.
Thank you, Chair. And through the Governor, as rightly said by the Honorable Member, this MOU between Bank of Uganda and Queen Bank had certain timelines. And indeed, the first timeline was violated. At that point, when we took over the bank under statutory management, the first deadline for capital injection had been violated. But you also recall, Chair, that at that time, this bank had severe liquidity problems. Very severe. It could not serve customers.
How do I recall?
Chair, in a previous presentation we have made, we said that the bank requested for 115 million US dollars as liquidity support as a loan. They didn't have money to pay customers, so you could not wait longer. If you did, customers would start to suffer.
So you terminated the MOU.
Can we go to that letter?
Mr. Chairman asked whether Mr. Secretary terminated.
Let's dispose of one issue, then we go to the next one of Uganda.
Thank you, Chair, through the Governor. In my view, Mr. Secretary has explained that the deadlines set in the MOU had expired when the installments which we had agreed upon had not been fully paid. The MOU is here, Chair. Thank you.
You see, we've been talking about obligation under the Financial Institutions Act. Bank of Uganda as a regulator has obligations, powers, and duties. As a regulator, pre-takeover. What you are trying to explain is actually the pre-period before you took over the management. However, on assumption of that bank on takeover, you also have post-takeover obligation under the FIA. And one of the obligations you have when you take over is to see whether you can revive this bank post-takeover. That's when we look at Deloitte itself. Where's my law? Should be around section 90. Because actually when you take over, you even appoint a statutory manager. Mr. Katimbo Mugwanya. You appointed a statutory manager and you had duties under section 90 because you said you didn't have clear terms of reference, so you resorted to the law because the letter that appointed you did not state any terms of reference. So you assume the obligation you had under the law were your terms of reference. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, if that is correct, address us on section 94C. It is on. But you might have both, no problem.
This one is on.
Yeah, you are now like a head of state. You can have both microphones.
That is very big. I have no plans to become head of state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The key duty of the statutory manager on takeover is preserve the assets of the bank so that the bank does not run off the Richter scale and fall away. And that was my main thrust, keeping the depositors happy, keeping the bank working, and keeping the bank in one piece. During that period of statutory management, an inventory was done. Also for us in the bank, we also did evaluate and look at the state of the loans. We found that the loans were far worse than was being
indicated.
Mr. Katimbo Mugwanya.
Let me tell you what I was doing as statutory manager,
No,
Mr. Chairman.
I don't want you to tell me whatever
You asked me, sir.
Listen. Address us on your duties under Section 90.
My duties under Section 90C 4C did not arise because the bank was insolvent.
No. Okay. We are going to interrogate that further. Mr. Katimbo Mugwanya says his duties under Section 94C never rose, meaning he actually did nothing as required by the law under Section 94C. What he says he did is actually under A, which we know because the bank was open. B, he did. I don't know to what extent he did.
E.
Then from B, he jumped to C.
No, D, I did. And E, I did.
Mr. Katimbo Mugwanya,
you're asking what I did.
I am more interested in what you did not do than what you did.
I'm also wanting to tell you that I did something.
There is no, you have been a bank open for 3 months and you don't do anything. At least you open. You get it? You just leaving it open. That was also did something. But we are looking at the law, and tomorrow, if you are appointed a statutory manager, you should know all your obligations. Okay? And if you didn't do that obligation,
NTV, turning on your world.
My name is Fiona. I'm a transmission engineer. Like you can see me here, I'm in charge of the entire transmission. A very Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2019.